Well, Brian, a rare, comfortable afternoon for Tottenham. 2 goals for Gareth Bale. Is he back?
Well, he played very well today. I think he obviously did enough in the second half last week against West Ham to convince Jose Mourinho that he deserved a starting place. He hasn't done enough before now, that's for sure. I would concur with Jose Mourinho that he hasn't looked good enough, hasn't looked enthusiastic or brave or strong in possession in the earlier games he's played, be it the FA Cup, the Europa League, the League Cup matches, or even the other occasion when he's played in the team in the Premier League. But he certainly did the stuff today. Got off to a good start, was a fairly simple goal, but he played well. His all-round game was good, and he worked reasonably hard for the team on the defensive side. There was no huge threat from Burnley, so it was quite an easy game for Spurs as it went on. But I think he did enough to start in the next game against Fulham.
Does everyone just need to readjust their expectations around Bale? Because a lot goes back to those final couple of seasons at Spurs where he's electric, and then how he kicked on at Real Madrid, winning 4 Champions League titles. Do we just have to accept that Gareth Bale ain't ever coming back?
Well, I think people are having to adjust to that. I mean, certainly I felt that Gareth Bale could make a major impact back at Spurs. Our understanding of what happened at Real Madrid in the last couple of seasons where he was underused, he still got a reasonable number of goals in each of the seasons when he played games. Our understanding was that that they weren't looking after him very well, and he'd become someone who they wanted to move on, and that he wasn't doing the stuff at the level they wanted to from him. But that the feeling was if he got back up and playing, there's someone with a team and a manager who believed in him, he would do it. But you're looking at his performances since the start of this season, you're starting to think, well, now I can understand why Zinedine Zidane wanted him off the books, that he wasn't playing well enough and that he didn't seem like he was really committed to doing the work in the game that's required of someone that's on the wage bill at a major club in the world. I mean, the first thing you're looking for off any player is graft and effort and commitment. And he didn't.
Was that an attitude thing, or is that a fitness? Because he was such, like, his athleticism was such a key part of what made him so great.
It's hard to believe that his athleticism and his physical ability would have declined so much that after a few months back in England, under the guidance of what you would think would be expert medical and strength and conditioning people, that he wouldn't have been in shape prior to now, which were at the end of February. It's really hard to understand that. So there has to be some part of it that's his mental attitude and his overall well-being that had gone so far that it's taken 7-8 months into the season for him to get into the shape where he can start in the first team in a match of significance. I find it hard to believe, but today's evidence seems to be that the ability is still there, and that if his physical well-being is in a good place, that he can do it. Now it was against Burnley, but lots of teams struggle against Burnley, and he seemed to be right at it today, and seemed to be no bother to him, and he gave Taylor a hard day, and he also, all the defenders had a hard time in dealing with him when he got on the ball.
Spurs desperately needed that win. They'd lost 5 of the previous 6. They've been in complete free fall. And historically, when we've seen that from a Mourinho team, he hasn't been able to stop the rod. He hasn't been able to turn it round. The attacking talent that Tottenham have, with Bale now part of it, Son, Keane, do you give them any chance of finishing inside the top 4 this season, which I guess would be success?
I give them a chance, but I don't think they'll make it. They're 6 points off with a game in hand on West Ham. But the problem for them is that they are not just behind West Ham, they're behind Aston Villa, Everton, Liverpool, Chelsea, probably leaving out somebody else there. But, there's a lot of teams. Leicester are obviously up there already. They're in third place, Manchester United second, West Ham fourth. There's a lot of teams in contention for those places who have more points than Spurs at the moment, have been more consistent, and have just as much reason for as Tottenham have for wanting to finish in the top four. So I give them a chance, but I think that the likelihood of them appearing in the Champions League next year is more likely to come from the Europa League. But that's not going to be easy either. Even if they be Dynamo Zagreb who'll be difficult options. There's good teams left. I think they'd be happy that Milan and Manchester United were drawn against each other, but there are other good teams still in that competition.
We've seen a lot of Tottenham this season, and I think back to the day of the North London derby where they beat Arsenal, were top of the Premier League, and at that stage you're looking back in the Brighton game and the West Ham game and thinking, well, if they'd won the two of those that they should have won, they could have been well clear at the top. What's gone wrong since then?
Well, I never thought that was built on a very solid foundation, that they got to the top of the league. They lost the early game, first game with Everton. After that, they went on a bit of a run. They were fortunate against Manchester United. The Manchester United had the Martial put off in the first half, and they exploited that, and they won convincingly 6-1. But there was a lot of the other games, I felt that, even the Arsenal game, Manchester City, where it was built on, they got a goal, they got a break, and they sat in and defended well. And I didn't think that was going to stand up to the test of time and more games against other opposition who would get the breakthrough. And that has proved to be the case. What's gone wrong? I think is an over-reliance on defensive football, where they tried to fall into a comfort zone of getting the first goal in the match, trying to sit on that lead, being found out. Confidence drains them when the opposition get a goal. Sometimes they've got 1 point from the game, other times they've been beaten, but they can't really have much complaint. They haven't been good enough, they haven't been consistent enough. The goalkeeper and the centre-backs have been brittle, I would say.
So is it a players' issue? Because
it's a
Roy
combination
Keane was on Sky before the game and seemed quite adamant that take Kane and Son out of that team and there's nobody else getting anywhere near
I think
one of the top four.
Look, that's too rash of an analysis. It's not a detailed analysis. If you look at the players they have in comparison, I think to the squad that somebody like Aston Villa has, or Everton, or Leicester even, I think Spurs have easily a comparable squad. I mean, you could say Leicester's front man Maddison and Vardy would compare to Son and Kane, but I think we would put Son and Kane ahead of them. And all around the pitch, I think they've almost got two players for every position around the pitch. They're comparable to, I would say, everybody bar Manchester City at the moment, maybe even Manchester United. So I don't think the manager has got the best use out of the players. I think the players don't have confidence in the style of play that's been promoted as what's best for them, for the club. And as a result of that, they have lost far too many games once again. And I don't think the manager has got the best out of the players he has at the club. And I would put it down to the manager as much as I'd put it to the players.
Burnley, 5 points above the relegation zone now. They're missing their two main men up front in Wood and Barnes today. So maybe once that goal went in after 90 seconds, the game plan is gone. But do you worry for Burnley? Do you think
No, I don't actually, Nathan. I always have confidence in Sean Dyche. They had a poor start to this season. And then they got going and they got into a position where you're saying, how did they start so badly? But I've said this many times that I think the start many people had to this season was understandable, given the how the seasons were squeezed together, the lack of a pre-season, and with the squad they have, they're very short on numbers. There's been very little investment in the squad. Hope for them, I think, for the future is that with new owners there may be investment, but I think they'll be good enough to get away from the bottom three positions once again. Finished 10th last year. He's a manager that knows how to get the best out of the players he has available to him, and the players that know what's required too.
And when you look at the top then, Manchester City, another victory yesterday. Hard fought against West Ham, but 20 wins in a row in all competitions. Again, looking at the depth and the quality they had on the bench yesterday and the amount of money they spent to get those players there. Like, there's a lot of talk about the quadruple. When you look at that squad compared to what's around Europe at the moment, and you've seen them all over the last couple of weeks in the Champions League, do you almost expect Manchester City to go on and win everything?
No, I don't. I think there'll be a day in one of the cup competitions that we've seen in the past for Manchester City. I mean, if they play Spurs, for instance, in the final, would it be a surprise if they lost to Spurs? I suppose it would, but there'd be other people who would say, well, why be surprised? Mourinho knows how to do it and put a plan in place and get the plan implemented by his players. They beat Manchester City before, and they could do it again on a one-off on the cup final. They might need to do it on penalty kicks to do it, but they could do it. But there could be another day in the Champions League along the road, as happened to them in the last few years when they've been beaten by the likes of, Monaco, Lyon, Spurs, Liverpool. It could happen to them again, and for that reason, I don't think that they'll win the four trophies. But I think they have every chance to win the Champions League this year, given where Real Madrid and Barcelona are in particular at the moment. I don't think Atletico are in a good situation. Obviously, Chelsea haven't beaten them in the first leg already. And, while you might say, well, PSG will be still there, there'll be other teams be there. I think Manchester City have the best chance ever of doing it this season, of winning the Champions League. But that doesn't mean that they win the other competitions as well.
Great stuff as always, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. Thanks very much.